one example of many of the planetary positions that suggest to me that we're actually going to make this critical leap. In other words, I tested Kalaman's theory using astrology. And I wrote a whole appendix, because in my universe, if the astrology didn't show this, I would not have adopted this person's theory. And this is a very radical theory that Carl Kalaman has come up with regarding the Mayan calendar.
Oh, I assume when he did this, he stood alone, didn't he?
Oh, he just stood alone for sure, and he's had a lot of people who have been against him, and what's happening is piece by piece, his theory is being proven.
Let's go to our wild card line. You're on the air with us. Hello there.
Hi.
Hi.
This is BJ in Austin.
Hey,
Hi.
BJ, thanks.
It's great to talk to you. I'm really excited about this program. I actually felt that whole shift in 98. I had a spontaneous Kundalini rising.
Uh-huh.
And I just have a couple of comments and then a question. And I just wanted to say, I think that it's going to be both. It's going to be an increase in consciousness and crisis.
Yes. Well, it is a crisis right now. We're in the middle of a huge crisis. And it just, person by person, people are waking up and realizing, oh, my God, look what's happening. It is happening.
Yes, and with crisis comes opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think the treatment of trauma and how we view trauma is crucial to that. People can awaken through trauma. Trauma often precipitates an awakening.
Yeah, and let's look at this for a minute from the point of view of, like, quantum mechanics and the fact that the reality that you live in is actually being created by your own mind. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that might be going on here is there may be a lot of people who are going through this critical leap in our evolution, and there may be a lot of other people who just aren't experiencing it. In other words, what you think creates what's going on around you to a great degree. And that may be exactly what we're figuring out in the next 4 or 5 years.
And as we get there in the next 4 or 5 years, Barbara, what are you going to be doing? How are you going to chart this, watch it?
Well, what I've been doing personally as a teacher is I've been teaching Pleiadian agenda activations with my husband, Jerry Clow. And so we've been teaching these activations for like 12 years, ever since the Pleiadian agenda came in. And so when I discovered Carl Kalaman's research, I realized for the first time in 2005 that when we do these Pleiadian agenda activations, what we're actually doing is we're activating the ninth dimension, and we're activating the energy of the calendar itself. So I plan to do as many activations as I can tolerate through 2012.
Okay, we'll take some more calls, and we're going to keep you for one more hour. Barbara, are you available?
Yeah, thank you. I'm here.
All right, let's go to our East of the Rockies line. Welcome to the show. Hi there.
Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
I have actually a comment and a question. Basically, I have a theory of my own about the happenings of today and our crisis, as you said. You know, and you may have covered this earlier, but as we all know, history has a way of repeating itself, and I believe that we are in a continuum of we've actually begun the repeating of a course of events that will lead to, as you mentioned earlier, a sort of fall of the empire, so to speak, and America is starting to look like the next Rome. And I brought this up on a recent television show, and you know, the person that I spoke with, of course, you know, gave me the look of you're out of your mind, you know, but of course they were one of the more you know, disconnected folk of this sort of genre of thinking. And my question for you is, what is your view on the 13th sign of the zodiac? There's not much mention of that in our culture, but I have done some research of that 13th zodiac symbol that is sort of underlying. And I thank you for your time.
Okay. He's talking about Ophiuchus, which is the 13th sign of the zodiac. And the zodiac represents a division of the constellations on the ecliptic. And so you actually could have a zodiac of 20 constellations or 30 or whatever. And so I personally do work with a zodiac of 12, and that's for many, many reasons. The Mayans use a zodiac with 13 constellations. And so it's just a matter of how you want to divide things up.
All right, Barbara, stay with us. We're going to come right back with you. Another hour, final phone calls, and we'll get also specific with each one of you just to get your take on what you think is going to happen as well. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Well, you talk about time acceleration. This program's really going by quickly. We'll be back in a moment. Final hour with Barbara Hand Clow and your phone calls on Coast to Coast AM. Barbara, awakening the world mind. How do we do that? With programs like this, or is there something else out there?
Definitely with programs like this. And I don't think we should underestimate what happens when people start thinking more in a group mentality. Like one of the things going on with working with time acceleration is becoming aware of the various phases of it. Like, for example, during 2008, tuning into the past periods that relate to this period. And when a lot of people start having the same thoughts and start thinking along the same lines, I actually think it has quite a big impact.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Wildcard line, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Where are you calling from?
Westminster, Colorado.
All right, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you ever considered the verses in Isaiah chapter 24, verse 1, and then in 24, verse 21?
I've considered Isaiah very carefully, but I haven't memorized the verses.
All right, here's what I want to point out. The calendar today that we take for granted is based upon the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. In Isaiah chapter 24:1, it talks about the earth in the latter days being turned upside down. In verse 21, it talks about the earth wobbling to and fro like a drunkard. And it talks about the devastation that it would cause on the inhabitants of the earth. Well, you put two factors together. You were talking about a huge potential solar flare. And in chapter 30 of Isaiah, it talks about the sun going 7 times brighter than it normally does.
Isn't that fascinating?
And that would tend to indicate a solar flare condition that may affect the rotation of the earth.
Yeah.
And if that earth flips, as is described in chapter 24, you might get a magnetic switch as well, besides the geographical switch. And you might have the sun then coming up in the west and setting in the east. Now, you can imagine that if the earth shifts fairly rapidly, you're going to get tidal basins coming out of the oceans that are causing tsunamis that nobody ever dreamed of.
That's right.
So your coastal areas would be affected, which is one of the things Jesus forecast in the Gospels about that there would be problems with people living on the coastland. Woe unto them that live on the coastlands for the perplexing tides. So what I'm going to suggest is if that happens, not only do you have the disasters, but you'd have to have a realignment of satellites if any of them survive the solar hit to begin with. And then you would have your Earth's electrical grids would essentially be offline for a time. And everybody would be depending on whatever wisdom they had stored anything away to survive until they could get the power back online because of polarity changes.
Right.
So this is something that I thought maybe you might want to consider with everything. The other thing I'd like to say to you, it's nice to see a woman with a spine in regard to what you said about the Bush Empire collapsing.
Right. Do you think Colorado is a good place to be, considering what you're worried about?
Well, I'm not worried about it. That's why I'm in Colorado. So.
Oh, okay. You're in Colorado, so you don't have to worry about that. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, right on the water.
Well, let's go to the international line then. Barbara, you're on the air. Where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Rick in Toronto.
Hey, Rick, go ahead.
I believe I can put a lot of this together. This sort of like a jigsaw puzzle has come together for me. I mean, you talk about world peace. You talk about the fall of the American empire, quote unquote. Well, the only way you're going to get world peace is if all nation states cease to exist. And the only way that would happen is a worldwide cataclysm, such as a instant freeze.
An instant freeze.
2012, putting together the fact that, well, not the fact, but the hypothesis that